So, welcome everybody. Our New Year's New Year first meeting. Let's see, we got everybody. I guess Steve, our alternate, gets to vote. How many votes? Everybody get a look at the minutes. Last it was back in November, I guess, since we skipped December. Anybody have any comments? See,
I remember feeling anything when I read it.
Yeah. I had one small item. I guess working off the agenda, you had that trapping application that hasn't appeared. I just thought it makes sense to delete that since it's not.
Okay,
active.
take that off.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if he shows up.
Yeah,
But obviously,
we sent it back with, could you fill in some of the blanks?
right. Yeah, basically.
It's gone.
Yeah, so anyway, that's the only thing I said. So we'll accept them as slightly amended there. Okay. Treasurer's report?
Okay, a handful of things. So in the month of December, we earned $1,638.05 in interest, bringing our balance to $737,896.29. One thing I did, since I was trying to keep records with just emails from Peter, got messy. So, okay, how do I get this screen to display?
That's the 12/31 balance.
That's the end of the year balance.
You are on Teams though, gather?
Yeah, but most of these things usually, they go, whatever screen you're looking at, it shows. Apparently not. It's
Well,
looking at
you want to open a document, right? So you have to share it. Should be something there that says share. So it may be that it's not able to.
all it wants to do is sell me a contract. Microsoft Teams. Okay, I'm just going to have to talk about it. So there's a spreadsheet. I've got tabs for 23, 24, and 25. I cut in the interest payments, any bills we paid, and any land use change tax payments that we got coming in. I got this by getting Amy to send me a report and put it together. One of the weird things in here is they errantly charged us $5,328.61 for some work that was done, something to do with the CD Bridge project. And we went back to her and said why, and she couldn't figure out why, except it was an error. So they've credited it back. But just in a nutshell, in 24, we got about $216,000 in land use change tax payments. And we should be seeing some probably in the next couple of days for Q4. And we made about 20 grand in interest. And we've got almost $738,000. So we're now a little better way of keeping, now we got a little historical record of where our money's been going. Now we accumulates.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And one last thing, I got 2 bills that were charged to my credit card for our electronic platforms. One is our WordPress account for accessing our webpage, $119.88, and our 1-year sign up for Google One, which is storage where we keep stuff, at $19.99. So I'd like to make a motion that we authorize payment of reimbursement to Jack Gale for $139.87.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you. It's all the treasurer's report. Yeah.
Great. All right.
I can just throw in a side note. Sel's probably to be coming asking for some money for some project.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe
have
something.
to-
We don't have enough.
Yeah. Well, we don't have all that money.
Yeah.
Honestly, some of this. I'm not, but
Don't anticipate to last for all of it.
yeah. No, I talked to Dwayne the other night, which I'll say more about later, I guess. But yeah, I mentioned that we anticipate we'll have something. We just don't know how much. So So I guess we'll go around. You may know everybody here, but introduce ourselves.
Jeff Gale, treasurer.
John Wallace, member of the public.
Doug Bogan, Chair.
Gary Avery, Commissioner.
Steve Hopped, I'm an alternate.
Steve is soon to become a full member, because I'm Ken Grossman, and I'm not gonna re-up. Nice to see you. You spent a lot of time on the phone.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, let's go to the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mark West is with West Environmental.
Yeah.
Name?
Yeah, I actually worked on a potential sub project on Ayers Pond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The one you're hinting at there.
Probably, I don't know
Was that
exactly.
recently? I mean, the last-
This summer, this late summer.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
So based on your email response, I went ahead and made a PowerPoint. It wasn't part of the contract,
Wow.
but I
Hope
figured,
that'll work.
but I can also have the report.
Yeah.
So I can do it
PDF.
either way.
Can you do it without the computer? Because I haven't figured out how to get, I have no screen in Microsoft Teams that says share your page, which
Yeah.
Zoom does.
He's got that.
I have my own computer that I
Well,
brought too.
Thing is, we'd like to get it on the big screen. Now, there is a,
Flash drive?
USB port. There are a couple of them back there. I don't know whether.
Well,
You can
it's not in my contract to do.
Yeah.
I think I'll be able to do it now. So if you've got either a PDF or PowerPoint.
It's-
Yeah,
It's in a
Stick it in.
It's in a PowerPoint and a PDF. I prepared everything so we
Yeah.
have options.
yeah.
Well,
Jack, do you think can you handle either or yeah,
they're both on this. There's
Good.
nothing else on this but
on yours?
your project. So, fingers crossed.
So folks recall, we contracted to get a ecological study of Richardson Pond and possible removal of the dam there and what effect it might have on local environment. So that was back in February, I guess.
Lexar,
March.
That's it.
Richardson Dam.
Yeah, there's a
There's the
PowerPoint
Okay,
report and a PowerPoint.
PDF out. This.
There, that one. Let's see if
Let's see
it.
how it works with Google Slides. Google Slides.
So, yeah, the overall study, I ended up calling it an ecological feasibility study because it was a lot of it was based on the request from Deb Gorditz Selt to address a variety of environmental issues. But ultimately, a lot of it comes down to what is permittable by the DES. So you've got the Dam Bureau that's working with the town to bring it into compliance, the dam into compliance, either by repairing it or by lowering it so that it's no longer a jurisdictional dam. So there's these, here we go. Okay. Do you want to do the page down for me? Oh, does that thing at the bottom go away? Otherwise, half the slides are all going to be covered.
Escape or
That's the
whatever.
TD.
It's going to be hard to see half of a presentation.
Yeah.
So while he's doing that, ultimately, so it's my understanding based on, by talking to the DES Wetlands Bureau, they immediately got in touch with Dam Bureau and said, well, there's other alternatives than total removal.
Yeah.
And I explained that my job was to see what the feasibility is of total removal. And so we end up having conversations with both several entities closed.
Yeah, Paul mentioned something about closing something, but
Yeah, we're,
Is that all from Teams at the bottom?
I think it
No, it's more the TV. That's why I'm using the remote. Which one is it? I don't know.
Oh,
oh, there is.
all right.
I don't think it's stuff.
Okay, so, I guess I'll stand up on that.
Sure.
It's more dramatic.
Yeah.
So the table of contents, I have introduction, an aerial photo review, because reviewing aerial photos over time, I actually contacted, based on online and library, a person in the contact for the historical, Barrington Historical Commission or whatever, and never heard back, because I was trying to find out how old the dam was. Well, it turns out it's not, the Dam Bureau already knew it was 1935. So everyone else I talked to didn't think it was that old.
WPA project, maybe?
Yes, it was.
So the aerial photo review sort of gives us over time, what was happening. I did a water depth analysis because when you're talking about removing a dam and lowering the water level, you need to understand what the existing water level is. Then I did a wildlife habitat assessment, because before you get, nowadays, the Fish and Game have a lot of authority over wetlands permits. Before you even file the wetland permit, you need to address the rare and endangered species issues. So the next thing was a wetland prime wetland assessment report. The functional assessment that was done for the town by IEP by Bob Prokop in 1991 is an old functional assessment. That's the Hollins-McGee method from 1985. So we're talking about old stuff, old studies, old things like that. And then we're talking about DES regulations today. So I went and did a functional assessment to today's functional assessment methods in order to understand what would be impacted, what functions would be impacted based on what the functions are reviewed today in the DES rules. I have supporting maps for all that. Then we have Tim Stone, who's down in the Caribbean, living the life, doing his assessment. And then I have something called regulatory review results. Okay, so on to the next one. I also have appendices, the letter from CELT, which is the basis, all the aerial photos, the data search results, the functional assessment data form, the potential stream restoration length, which a lot of effort is now going into removing dams and restoring streams. So one positive of removing the dam would be restoring 0.85 miles of stream, potential stream restoration length, and then the full study by that was done by Tim Stone. So on to the next one is this is what CELT was concerned about, what the water level was, how that would impact water quality and sustainability year of groundwater and surface water, and current conditions in natural communities, resulting changes of biological integrity if you lower the dam, and impacts to federal, state or federally endangered threatened species. So these are just a series of aerial photos. Some of the ones back in the one in the 50s was very distorted. You can't really zoom in, but this isn't spring of 1960. It looks like it's all a pond or a lacustrine wetland, pond wetland system with a little bit of vegetation down in here. and we'll keep an eye of what happens. So the next slide uh, is,
It's the same date.
oh, let's hope we have a different one. There we go. Oh, there was a 1970, but maybe it didn't get done. So this is 2003, and you can see that in the summer, this whole thing fills in with vegetation. So the majority of the wetland is what we call aquatic bed habitat. Okay, but then here you have scrub shrub. Up here you have scrub shrub. You have some forested wetland along the edges and forested and scrub shrub wetland here. So you have a variety of wetland systems out there with the most open water close to the dam. And that's where I got the deepest water depths. The next one,
Mark, do you know when the 1960, what time of year the 1960 photo was taken?
spring, early spring.
Yeah,
So a lot of the early spring, but you'd expect that it may take a while for aquatic bed over years and years and years to build up
But
because
also,
sediments
it
get
does
trapped.
fill with lily pads a lot.
Right, right,
Once you get into the hot weather.
right.
Yeah, I've kaякed it, but I wouldn't want to do it in summer. I'd do it in spring.
Well, I did it during the full aquatic bed. It was a great workout. So, but you can see here in 2011, it's totally filled in. And this almost looks like algae or whatever, and less like aquatic bed. But you can't tell exactly from that photo. This is 2020 in the fall. So we still have the open water, we have the aquatic bed, and then you can see the emergent and scrub shrub. This is the LIDAR. And when Tim did his study and found that a lot of this was bedrock controlled, you can see the steep slopes and the jumping out of the topography relief because of, and this is where there's more ledge and this is over ledge. So that's going to come into play to Tim's study.
The LiDAR doesn't penetrate the water, right? We're seeing this water.
No, you can go back to the LiDAR. Can you go backwards? The wonderful thing about LiDAR is you can really tell water because it's flat as a pancake.
Exactly.
You can see that in the scrub shrub, and this isn't the marsh is relatively flat too. But like when I dealt with violations, I was working for the town commission in Barrington where there was a violation, and you could see the 4 vernal pools that this guy filled. He's like, oh, no, flat as a pancake because it's water. And if you take the picture in April, it's good. The water's flat. And I do tons of mapping in a lot of towns, not a lot of towns, in several towns, I'm remapping the prime wetlands because they were done with a stereoscope and aerial photos, and they're not nearly as accurate as the LiDAR. So I go back and I find that, yeah, there's this map could be significantly corrected. And so that's what I'm doing for some towns. Next. So this is my water depth assessment. And I sort of followed the stream channel to see where the deep water was, and then went out to see where the shallow water was. You can see these are the deeper readings, but there's also a deep reading right in the channel here and here and here and here. And then you get areas that fill in. And from here out, it's less than 1 feet. From here out, it's less than 1 feet. And a lot of this is 1 to 2 feet. But this...
5 and 7 over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere off the dam, you could drown.
Yeah.
But the other areas, you'd have to work at it.
So this helps us understand if we lower it 3 feet, what the water levels are going to be. The water's not going to go away. It's still a wetland, and I believe it was a wetland before they built the dam. And I believe actually there's peatland in places here. And it could have all been a peatland. But it gives us an idea of what's going to happen. And of course, this is the stream channel that would be restored if it was to be lowered. Next. So for the wildlife habitat assessment, the Natural Heritage Bureau data search, there's eel downstream, and I'd like your guys' reading on Malago, Malago or Melago?
Mal.
Mal, okay. So the eel is downstream, and that came up when the DES, we were talking about it because one of the fish, well, I'll talk about that next. The Blandings turtle is the big issue here. It's in state endangered, and it's been found right there. Okay. Spotted turtle is downstream, and wood turtle is downstream. Wood turtle is more of a stream turtle. It likes to live in stream rivers and streams and undercut banks and things like that. Spotted turtle is more of a marsh species.
So just to clarify, the Blandings turtle is in the pond now.
Well, I'm going to show you, but first let me explain. The Blandings turtle's habitat requirements include permanent, shallow, dark waters with abundant vegetation, check. Slow-moving water with abundant emergent and submerged vegetation, check. They hibernate in mud at the bottom of ponded areas, check. So the next picture is something that has to be redacted from a public report. According to the DES, this is something that is these maps are not supposed to be shared with the public because they're trying to protect it. But
What world are we in here? The people are
Blandings. Okay? So that's the most endangered species, and it's not near the site. It's near the site over here. Whereas spotted turtles are downstream, and wood turtle is downstream, and the eel is downstream also. I believe it's possible spotted turtles are going to be here, but I believe the wood turtle, if we lowered the water level, it might move over to here, but it's likely not present.
Yeah, the hike around the dam's easy for us, but not so easy for the turtle.
So it's also important to note that this is the WAP map, and they don't, I don't know why they don't designate surface water, because this is more of a aquatic bed system. But again, they used leaf-off photography for all this. But you could, and I don't know why this showed up, because this is all the same way. But this is all the magenta is all highest ranked habitat. This is supporting landscape, and this
I think the green is what is highest in region.
And then this is supporting landscape. So I did the functional assessment. I used my own data form because I don't know if you guys review wetland permits that use the highway methodology, but all you get is a bunch of numbers, and then you have to go look them all up. So what I have is a 2-page functional assessment that looks at the physical features of the wetland, checks muddy bottom, checks aquatic bed, checks emergent vegetation, checks all the different characteristics, and then we know what functions are there. The principal functions of this wetland system include ecological integrity, flood storage, sediment trapping, basically all of them. Okay? The values are there too. Water-based recreation, education potential, noteworthy miss, which has to do with endangered species. It's a weird word, and scenic quality. The impacts, if we lower 3 feet of water, include flood storage, nutrient removal retention, because the water isn't resident as long, and production export, wetland dependent wildlife habitat, water-based recreation. So it has a lot of impacts. I don't think it really impacts the education potential because it still will be a wetland and it still has public access. So the next slide. For prime wetlands, because this is a designated prime wetland, it's 45 acres. If you are going to do something to impact this wetland, the applicant for a project shall submit functional assessment and impact analysis to demonstrate clear and convincing evidence as required by the regulations that the proposed project will either alone or in conjunction with other human activity will not result in significant net loss of any of the values. I'm not sure why you use functions and values, but that's what's meant by it.
And you listed quite a few there at the bottom half.
Yes.
So you say any one of them.
And
Right.
when I'm assuming when you say impact, they're all going down.
Correct. So the next slide are some photos. This is photos in the winter during higher flow. And this is during no flow in the summer. You can even see beavers,
Yeah,
sticks.
we occasionally try to get in there with claws and pull stuff out, but
Yeah.
there's no easy place to do it. Charlie and I have gotten a little wet doing it.
This is what it looks like from the dam. Again, we have the open water right there. This is around the corner heading into the property. There's shrub in the background, and you can see some of these aquatic beds. The peat has accumulated, the muck and peat have accumulated. You can actually stand on these if you're brave.
Yeah.
Quicksand.
I think I'll hire a frog to do it, but I'm not doing it.
Okay. This is the shrub area. It's leather leaf dominated, which is more of a bog type, fen. This would be more of a fen type species. And this is where the stream heads up.
What's a fen?
A fen is a peatland that has flow through hydrology, whereas a bog is more of an isolated system.
So it would have more of a stream bed as
Yeah.
opposed to.
Yeah, we have more fens. I forget the name of that property I did a study for SELT. They're conserving right at 202 and 126 or whatever, where it dumps down. There's a fen on the corner that,
Hill Pond.
Hill Pond.
yes,
It's the Landry project.
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So
No.
I kayak that too to see, and if you look near the roadways where the water runs off, there's cattails coming in, but the rest of it is a peatland with a variety of different, it's got some rare plant
So
communities.
that would be considered a bog then? Or-
No, a fen,
Fen.
because the water's flowing through it.
And it's the root of the word Fenway. And if you're
Yeah.
driving north of Boston,
Yeah.
there's areas called the Fens where
Oh,
where
yeah.
Right.
Well,
nature
water
is
was sand.
was a fen, yeah.
So this
Environmental impacts.
is, I did this to show there's shallow marsh, there's forested wetlands, there's aquatic bed, and there's shrub wetlands, shrub, forest. So there's a diversity of wetlands, which increases its wildlife habitat value. So this is your prime wetland map. Again, the surface water, all of it's prime wetland, but the surface water layer is stuck in with it. And it's prime wetland 4. I'm not sure what the 0 is, but this is right out of your GIS. This is the results of the Hollins-McGee study. And they have things like biological function, hydrological support, groundwater, flood storage, water quality, shoreline, so it's a different set of things. That's why I wanted to redo
This is
it.
the thing your predecessor used in 91.
Yes. Yeah, but it ranks quite high in quite a few of the functions. Aesthetics, I think it's the highest in recreation. So it's not just one of the prime wetlands. It's one of the more important ones. But they're all important. So Tim Stone's results, I included his whole report, but in the, as an appendix, but in the report, this was to address what Selt was talking about, groundwater recharge, impact on groundwater. He will say it has little or no discernible impact to the downstream brook and to the aquifer, as the overall flow of water downstream in the brook will not change significantly. Additionally, the 2.5 square mile drainage to the dam is small compared to the whole drainage of Malago Brook. So that's a key. This tributary is one tributary of a bigger system. He also said one of the benefits of dam removal made to the brook would be the temperature of the water flowing into the brook. You'd no longer have that heating because you wouldn't have that retention of surface water.
So that's the one it's the one brownie point so far.
Well, and that's good for other wildlife, right?
You're right.
Right.
Brook trout.
Fisheries, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't like bath water.
Yeah. And then he also says there'll be little impact on groundwater quality or yield of the bedrock wells. Most of the pride wells are 30 to 40 feet deep. So he checked. You'll see he's got a table of all the wells around the site. And much of the groundwater pumped from bedrock supply originates from upland areas to the north, northwest, and west, particularly for the properties along Young Road. And the tributary that feeds into this comes under Young Road. One of them, or the bigger ones. Yeah. So he had other results showing the bedrock features and the fact that this is at way higher elevation than Malago Brook downstream. So there's a lot of information in his report. So the next step was the regulatory review of potential dam removal. So I sent in a package for consultation, and regulators tend to like to be commenting on an actual application. So this was different. This was just a preliminary consultation of a possible project. But what happened was, by talking to Mary and Tilton and talking to Fish and Game, I called the gentleman who's the head supervisor of all the environmental reviews, and they've gotten some new staff to speed up their reviews because sometimes it can take 6 weeks. So you're waiting to file your client's waiting to file an application, have to find out about the turtles and everything. But Marianne then just said, why don't we get everybody into a Zoom call so we can all talk about it together? So I met with a whole bunch of them, and there were 4 people from the Fishing Game. And we're going to go back to what they said. They found that they predicted there would be potential loss of blending turtle habitat if all that aquatic bed was gone, and that would impact breeding and feeding as well as overwintering. This would indicate that they would prefer other alternatives that would have less impact to the water levels of Richardson Pond. So the next one, this is Marianne indicating that she would have difficulty making approval findings for dam removal. So in order to issue a permit, they have to make statements that indicate whether there's significant net loss. If there is, then they can't make a finding that supports the permit. They require the application to consider any alternative that would have less impact on wetland functions and values. The dam repair or lowering the dam structure such that it no longer qualifies as a dam, both results in less impact to prime wetlands and its functions and values. So the DES, if you have an alternative that has less impact, they're not going to say, sure, go ahead, because you've got an alternative that's better for the rare species and for the functions of the wetland and for the specifically for the prime wetland. Because impacting prime wetlands is pretty much a big no-no. And the mitigation now for prime wetlands is significant, but they do make it, you do it on site. So Connor MacGyver was talking about, well, there could be a big mitigation fee. And then they'd have to calculate, what is the impact? Is it the whole 45 acres of that wetland? Is it the deep marsh part of the wetland? I mean, if you were to pay the fees, it would be $50, $70, $100,000. I don't think it would ever get that far. That's why we did all this work, so we don't waste the money doing the whole thing. So this is question time. There's a lot more in the report than that, but I didn't have a lot of time to put the whole thing together, but I tried to cover most of the bases.
Since it's our chief concern tonight, that's a Blandings.
Yes. They have the dome, they have spots, little spots on them, but they have the dome and they have the yellow throat. And that one was basically saying, I'm going to do everything I can so it's easy to identify which species I
I don't usually see the throat on experience.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've looked at pictures and you can see it from the side view.
Hold in and maybe.
Yeah, you can see the side view.
Or maybe it's, he knows what we're talking about and he's basically giving, it's his version of the finger to us.
Well, I was thinking maybe he was trying to look like a branch of the log.
Well, you figure the yellow throat must have some purpose. It's not just, you know,
Yeah, I think it might have to do with looking from underneath and protecting the head, but
The same way US aircraft, like paint light blue bottoms, something like World War II aircraft, maybe this is looking up into light.
or fish. A lot of fish have white on the bottom, dark on the top.
Yeah.
well, I was also saying lizards will put their necks up because
Yeah.
they have a bright, they
Yeah.
often have a brighter throat.
Well, some of them can even inflate it to try to scare
Or
them.
that too, yeah. But-
Yeah.
But some of it's just-
He is looking pretty tall.
Yeah, let's.
Sure, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, they may seem rudimentary because I'm not conversant on all this stuff. I'm getting up to speed, but at the beginning, you said that it was a state endangered species. Does that mean New Hampshire classifies it as endangered, but the rest of the country does not?
Every species that's categorized, there's a whole set of categories: special concern, threatened, or endangered. So in this case, here's a good example. The wood turtle is special concern, the spotted turtle is threatened, and the Blandings turtle is endangered. That's a state designation. Then there's federal designations, but none of these are federally designated.
Okay.
But a federal designation is something like the piping plover, or some species that are even more rare than just in New Hampshire.
And a federal federal endangerment would be a more weighty kind of
It
consideration.
would be, the federal government would have a bigger say
Yeah. Okay.
in what
So
happens.
it's endangered in New Hampshire, but maybe not in Maine, let's say, or, no, the idea is that
I
state by
think the
state.
Blandings, though, yeah.
I mean,
A
some,
lot of the Blandings are endangered in Massachusetts, I think in Maine also, but they may not be in parts of the Midwest or something like that.
but it's the idea of federal versus
Right.
state, it's, you
Right.
know, on the
But-
national scale, it may not be the highest level.
But what happens is these species, the Fish and Game applies for grants, and they do much more significant study of these species, trapping studies to find them. They have focus areas. The federal government the NRCS that funds conservation easements have, if you're in one of the focus areas for Blanding's turtle, they increase, or it's more important to fund protecting. So it triggers all kinds of things down the line.
I've got the list. Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and South Dakota.
It's endangered.
Endangered in all those states, threatened in New York and Iowa.
Hawaii.
So originally, you said in your report that lowering the dam by 3 feet seemed like okay, that there would the stream flow and the habitat.
It's feasible from there'll still be wetlands and everything.
But I didn't hear you say at that time. I thought it was a reasonable. It wouldn't impact the habitat.
When did I say that?
Well, maybe you didn't, but I thought you said when you lowered it, if you were going to lower it by 3 feet, that was probably going to be all right for the
Stream flow.
The stream flow, the deep portion would continue,
But then,
but all those areas that
But
are
it's the
shallow.
I heard that's what I thought you, and then of course, then the Wetlands Bureau basically said they basically disagreed.
Right. I'm not the one who makes the decision as to
Yeah.
whether you can get it.
But it sure sounds like they strongly,
They strongly disagree.
Oh, there wasn't, they weren't iffy about
Yeah, okay.
yeah, well, it seems pretty definitive.
it.
And,
Yeah.
and I
So
gather.
you have 3 significant issues. It turns out it's not groundwater recharge. It turns out it's not, that's not an issue. It turns out it's not flow into Meligo Brook because you lower the dam and the same amount of water still is going there. It's the prime wetland is the number 1 thing. Number 2 is alternatives, but both of those are pretty much even. And then number 3 is the endangered species happening that are present on site. It's not a question whether they may be there. If you look at the actual reports, it says in the parking lot,
They've been cited.
on the dam, and then the other one is near, at the edge of the wetland off Young Road. So there's not a question of whether it might be bad, but they don't even care. Even if it was only a quarter mile away, they would still feel the same way about it.
The only way you can make this work is if removal of the dam would allow some species to come up Malago Brook in there that they love more than a landing turtle.
Right, and
So
I gather that
If
you
Loch
said maybe
Ness,
one of
Loch Ness.
one of the
So,
other turtles might.
One of the inspectors, one of the Fish and Game, he's more of a regulatory person. He's on the Wetland Council. His name is Michael Dion, but he's more of a fisheries person. He said, well, if they're gonna do something to the dam, maybe they can put in some stone and create a fish passage. Immediately, the other biologists at the Fish and Game said, we wouldn't want stone riprap where it would create voids where turtles could get stuck. So the turtles are more important than the eel.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, it's more the regulatory. Now, another thing that could be explored, which I assume you guys don't want to do, but I want to throw it out there, is you could try to undesignate the prime wetland. That has been done in New Hampshire, and there's a town doing it now because of it's on town property and they want to do something. There's some crazy thing.
But
But
that doesn't seem.
that would also mean you're dealing with SELT, who hold the easement on it. But you also, that's something you all can think about, but it also may raise red flags in the town of why you're just doing this.
That's strictly a political decision.
Right, well, yeah. I had a town once last year say, we're concerned about development on this parcel. They already have some prime wetlands. We'd like you to do a study of this wetland because we want to designate this one wetland. I was like, that's not gonna work. If you want to do another set of wetlands in your town, and this is one of them, that's one thing. But you can't designate, and you probably shouldn't target undesignated. Because especially when it's one of the highest ranked wetlands in the town.
Plus, we have no other motive for this other than coming up with the best overall dam decision. It's not like we're trying to intentionally change any of the rest of the property, so we've got no excuse to even attempt that.
Yeah.
If we did, we haven't thought of it yet.
You mentioned, if the dam were removed, cooler water temperature flowing through. Was that the only positive thing that you think would ensue? I mean, would it make great habitat for something else perhaps,
I mean, you mentioned.
It might help the eel, but I don't, we don't even know where the eel is in the system besides the main stem of Malago.
Well, I talked to somebody at fisheries and they said that, again, I think it was where they showed the eel. It's where it meets up with the main Malago Brook, I guess. And he said they found eel and brook trout and one or two other species that they thought that.
Yeah, so it could, yeah.
Go
So
up.
it would be a fisheries.
But they also said it's pretty small and it's not going to make a huge difference.
Right.
All that. So,
And yeah, it would open up that, I measured it, 0.85 linear feet, 0.85 linear mile of a stream system. But the thing is, if you have the alternative of simply lowering a portion of the dam so that it doesn't qualify,
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have to build a bridge. You don't have to do anything. It's kind of the no-brainer.
But it's easier than removing the whole.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
How much would it have to be lowered to get below?
Yeah, only a couple feet. It's not even, I think it's 1.5.
So you'd have to do another study on what the impact would be of just reducing it a couple of feet.
No, you have to reduce the dam, not the spillway.
Yeah, spillway would still.
The spillway is lower than the dam. So the dam, if we want to go back at
Was it
pictures,
before the animal turtles?
go back all the way to the pictures. Oh, no,
No, not that far.
the other way.
Well, that would be nice.
Yeah, I think I have another one of the whole dam.
Yeah. No.
Oh, no, I didn't put it in there.
Oh, we've all seen it.
Yeah, so basically, there's the dam here. This wouldn't change. It's the height of the earthen berm that leaves here and goes all the way across it. That's the dam. This is the spillway.
Yeah,
If we were to lower the dam, though, it would clog up with debris real fast. Imagine lowering that bridge down.
Yeah,
a foot and a half.
based,
Wouldn't be much of an opening.
both Tim and I are convinced there was a whole wetland system behind here, and that this is a natural ledge choke point
Mhm.
that held water back anyway. And that's why even if you removed it, unless you blasted or,
Yeah.
you wouldn't lower it more than that certain amount.
So lowering the dam would effectively do nothing to the water flow.
The earthen dam, no, you
Well,
could,
but it's
you-
really the flood. I mean, I assume the dam people are concerned about when you have flood conditions, if that gets choked off or, gets maximum flow, you'd have water backing up, I guess.
Right. well, you also have an overflow
Yeah.
culvert. And
That-
so you could, yeah, but I think it's a low rated menace or whatever. So,
Yeah,
so.
but it still is their
But-
concern. Because
Yeah,
it's-
but I don't think, I think there must be something to do with, even if it's not a dam, the town is still responsible if it blows out or whatever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't understand why we'd be going through all this.
But just the idea that if the height is a certain level above the normal flow.
Yeah, that's what
You're
makes,
backing up more water, which means the flooding impact
Yeah.
could be greater if it was to fail, right?
yeah,
You've just got many.
That's why the 6 foot rule, the state says they we're not sweating 6 feet
Right.
dams.
Yeah, the rule is from the water elevation to the top of the earthen berm.
Yeah.
And if you have that 6 feet, and you literally can get it to 5.5.
Yeah.
I did a project in Rye where the dam had to be lowered. We didn't touch the weir and outlet structure to get it non-jurisdictional.
So before, when you were talking about lowering the water level 3 feet, is that, am I clear? Was that what you were saying?
Yes,
And how would?
that means this whole structure, this structure would be removed and the earthen berm.
All the man-made parts, right?
Yeah.
If there's ledge underneath it, that would
Right.
stay,
Right,
but we don't really know where the ledge is.
Right.
That's man-made, that
right.
spillway, right?
Yeah, it's too,
So what you essentially would be doing is this water level
Yeah.
would be the water level of the pond,
Right.
and it'd be way down. It would be a mark. It would. So what I hypothesized was that the aquatic bed area would turn into shallow marsh. The emergent area would turn into shrub. The shrub would start turning into forested wetland. And you'd still have a diverse complex, et cetera, and you still have some open water behind here.
It would be more of a narrow.
But that would be aquatic bed.
and we'd be ruling the neighborhood of the state's favorite turtle.
And what you described is purely hypothetical. It's not clearly understood.
You don't know until you do it. And we can't, any photos that are available before 1935 aren't going to tell us what kind of play community was behind that dam.
Is that when the dam?
Yes.
State's around 35.
Yeah.
But presumably before the dam was built, it was something like what you're describing.
Right. Especially if you look at that LiDAR and you see all these slopes and then you see this flat
And I
low
gather
area.
If it was like you described, it wouldn't have been good habitat for landings back then, 100 years, right? But
It wouldn't be as good
yeah,
because
but
the
they probably were somewhere else.
the biggest thing that Kevin Sullivan, the head reviewer guy, environmental reviewer guy, was even if it changed, the biggest issue is you take away that aquatic bed and that deep enough water, you can remove hibernating habitat. Then they don't have a place to overwinter.
Yeah.
And then they're in.
So they would
They
have.
can't overwinter in the stream,
They would have been living somewhere else, or they would have had.
or they may just be living right behind the dam, behind the ledge
Yeah,
restriction.
right.
Yeah, you can claim that there might not have been many, but it's really hard to prove, but the state only can say, we got sightings, we
Yeah.
know they're here.
Well,
let's see.
given, that they're endangered and they're
Yeah.
obviously losing other habitat. I'm
But
sure-
even if they weren't there, the prime wetland,
Yeah, still on what?
By the way, how many designations of wetland are there? Like, is there prime in one of them?
No.
Or-
there's only prime.
Oh, only prime.
Prime wetlands were problematic in the way they implemented them. At one point, people were trying to do forestry projects and they were told they, on 100 acres, they had to flag and survey all the wetlands, and foresters got mad, and then the home builders, and then they had another consultant who's very politically involved, and they went after the prime wetlands and they voided the buffers to all the prime wetlands. The whole reason towns designate prime wetlands is the state protected a 100-foot buffer.
Mhm.
It was a state 100-foot buffer.
So originally it was that way, huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And originally the prime wetland also had to be very poorly drained soils.
Yeah.
But when they changed the regulations in 2012, they kept the 100-foot buffers to any prime wetlands that were designated between 2009 and 2012. It happens to be several a bunch that I did, but it's Fremont and Brentwood and some other towns.
Right.
But your town and like Exeter, which was the first one to designate, all the buffers gone. And then they added this thing about if it narrows to less than 50 feet, you have to chop it off into another wetland. And it's a bunch of baloney going on to make it easier, but it basically got rid of the buffer. But most towns have buffers, and that's a better.
100-foot buffer to Brian. We did
Yeah,
when I was
yeah.
here.
Except that it's measured differently, and I didn't realize this until actually till we looked at the Young Road development. They're planning to put in 24 houses just upstream,
Yeah.
Which will certainly affect the hydrology. But looking at those maps, they go, wait a minute, because it's the very poorly
Very
drained
poorly
soil
drained.
is where the 100-foot starts.
No,
And
in the town regulation,
at
yes.
least, yeah. in town.
Most towns that have a prime wetland regulations, it's from the prime wetland boundary. That's where we open a whole huge can of worms, because a lot of the regulators don't seem to know the difference between an aerial photo interpretation of the prime wetland boundary, right? And the wetland delineation. So if I'm out here flagging, this forested wetland shows up good on it. The forested wetland comes all the way out here, okay? But it's not prime. But I've had inspectors say, well, the wetland boundary's here, you have to include it. And I was like, that's not what was designated as a prime wetland. I had them telling me to go up fingers and all kinds of things. And the prime wetland is what was interpreted by the study and where that wetland is. And it doesn't include, if it was a different 5 feet this way or that way, it doesn't mean you all of a sudden include a new, bigger prime wetland. I was doing a nature trail, where it's an all-persons trail, and all we were doing was permitting a little overlook of a prime wetland. And we went through the ringer because they were saying, no, you have to include these fingers. And I was like, here's the original map. It shows the beaver pond. I mapped the highest water of the beaver pond. I did it correctly. Well, they did a request for more information and gave themselves another 30 days, and then they ended up agreeing with me. They said, what you did is acceptable. So anyway, there is a lot. You'd think this would come up a lot more with all the prime wetlands, but they don't. And there's two things. There's the mapping of a prime wetland that you do for the study, and then there's all the other ones. And they're two different things. And a delineation is different than a designation of prime wetland.
But ours were all done 30 some years ago.
Yeah.
So they're probably out of date or could be updated, right?
And they were.
And
I remember very early in my days on the commission, actually, someone came in here and noted, because they noticed that the prime wetland map actually went into her living room. So she needed to get that adjusted a little bit.
And that's why some towns are redoing them. But the other thing is, Marianne Tilton will agree and points us out that the DES puts it on the town to do the designation and mapping and everything. And having done about 25 of these, they've never come back and said, oh, you did this wrong, or you did that. They just, you're good. So you've got, the act, and I dealt with a town where the prime wetland boundary was 175 feet into the upland. And when the town asked me to look at some of it, instead of, when you do a prime wetland map, you do a line so you can see all the plant communities. They had opaque covering every prime wetland that they designated. So you couldn't even review it to see whether it was accurate.
so they weren't really looking at the very poorly drained soil.
No, that changed years ago. So they include both poorly and very poorly. So,
Okay.
but most prime wetlands, the majority of most prime wetlands are very poorly drained.
So two thoughts on that. Going back about 15 minutes.
That's the problem.
When you seem to suggest, going along with what you heard in Concord, that the most comfortable thing to do would be to just lower it so it's not a dam anymore. Except that we've been talking for a couple of years about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to redo it at the lower thing. And is the only reason we're doing that so we can get over there into that land that's on the other side of it?
Well,
I think we want to get off the state's list, so they can't.
well, yeah, I mean, if
Right,
that's
but-
all it was, yeah, we could just do that.
That,
but we have
yeah,
other-
would that not cost us several $100,000 that the engineers say it would cost?
Well, the biggest factor seems to be that bridge, the the abutments and the.
Right, so if there were no bridge
the
there,
structure.
Well, we kind of need it for
There's a
access.
fire department.
Yeah, the problem is,
Right, the fire department.
we want access because it's the,
want to go in there and walk
Conservation
around,
area.
and the fire department
but they
wants to
want,
be
we
able
don't
to,
want the
Take
vehicle.
out, trip out once in a while.
to drive a Hummer through there. or
Yeah,
something.
and they actually went down there last summer, and checked it out and said, oh, geez,
Yeah.
if you probably looked under the
Yeah.
abutment, it's coming apart. It's-
So I
And the
think
bridge
it's-
is gonna hold it.
I didn't realize, see, there's a lot of the other stuff that I didn't
Yeah,
realize
that's-
wasn't involved in. But when you say, I'm saying, based on what they told me, you will not get a permit to do that.
Yeah, to remove-
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
But it's not my decision,
yeah.
but it's my job to make sure the town doesn't go down the road that we've already spent a lot of money on these various things, but spend even more money to be denied.
Yeah.
I've never had a permit denied
well,
because
I.
I'm not gonna waste people's money.
Yeah, and even if it was,
Self, I'm pointing at John because he's sort of representing Self. Self isn't gonna play that game.
No.
And not for 5 minutes.
Well, I don't understand. The fire department is saying it's fire safety. They have to get out there.
yeah, I mean, they say a lot of things. They want all the roads to be rebuilt in
Yeah.
town because they're not, the proper width of
Private
the
road
roads.
stuff.
But this one, it makes some sense because it is a large woodland area. It's
And there's
something-
no other way to get to it.
Well, you can get to it from the backside from Beauty Hill, but it's a long way around. I mean, we might still put.
I mean, that's interesting to spend that much money just to, if there's another
But
way in.
even if it wasn't the fire department, we want access. We don't want.
Well, you want access, but you don't need a,
It doesn't need to be a
Big,
gold
expensive
plated
bridge.
one, yeah.
yeah,
And that's where the big expense.
yes.
Yeah.
So really,
Well, I think,
Well, the overall, I mean, obviously.
So I
it's
just
the
wanted to
abutments.
clarify what our need was, and we're gonna have another conversation, probably not tonight, about, but to tell the select board about where we are with this. Because,
but whether we replace the dam or we lower it a foot and a half to get below the 6 foot and restore at least, hiker and fire access, it'd probably be similar costs. Because
Yeah.
we still gotta go and rebuild the major features of this thing.
Yeah.
okay, I just wanted to be clear
And
on,
it looks like removing the dam is gonna be a non-starter. We'll never get permits
Yeah,
unless we,
even if it was.
Yeah.
cheap.
we know somebody cuter than a
but
blind
it,
external.
it was good for a relatively minor expense to have you do this, so that we.
Yeah. But you're gonna look also at possible grant opportunities.
that would be if you were gonna remove. the
Yeah,
whole thing.
yeah. I mean, I just wonder if it.
I'm just saying that that's what, so the ARM committee, the ARM fund used to, pay for lots of preservation, but now they're very into, restoration, and that includes streams. And they're desperate for looking for projects, but they've also made it way more complicated. Lori Summer was fantastic to work with. Now they have a whole staff, and I literally,
Yeah, but she's.
She's itself, so.
yeah, I know. But now they have staff that are very regulatory oriented. And like, I was doing a project for Moose Mountain where they're just putting a wooden bridge where there's a woods road for a trail. And we had a site walk with them, and Evan Lewis is out there with us and says, this is a trail permit. And the two people with ARM are saying, I think you need to do a complete engineering hydrologic study.
Well, it sounds like in
Yeah.
any case,
And
yeah.
it was like over the top. And so I shouldn't vent so much. Anyway, the bottom line is that.
That wouldn't be easy.
That, yeah, SELT would prevent you, we had to meet ecologically whether this made sense, and it doesn't ecologically. So-
So forget the.
So,
the
you know,
financial-
If the town wants to go down other roads and spend money, they can, but
Well,
I-
they want to save money. I mean, I think we can say that's a pretty good bet that
yeah.
they were hoping it would cost less to.
Right. And I can't remember whether I was talking, Tim talked to somebody because he had another hydrologist who said, oh, he was really curious. He took a look at it. He said, this is a piece of cake, if you wanted to remove it. But they talked about the fact that if you just lowered this, I don't know if that other part is even high enough. It's this part of it that I think needs to be lowered because it goes out that way. That's the highest part of it. And which means the bridge would have to be lowered anyway, which means these would have to be replaced anyway.
Which they need to be replaced. I mean,
Yeah.
they're
Do
falling
they
apart.
though?
Well, again, it depends on if you're talking foot traffic or vehicle.
They want
But-
to really, fire wants to get like an F-250 out there.
Yeah.
And that bridge.
Let them pay the extra that
Yeah,
it costs to do that.
I mean, the bridge originally designed would do that. If you look at what shape it's in now, I wouldn't drive my truck out on it.
Yeah,
Well, I think you're talking about two different things, though. The planking of the bridge is compromised. It's rotted.
well, yeah, that's.
Right.
the way it is.
But the structural underpinnings of that bridge don't seem to be compromised to me.
Well, see,
it's,
I
right
mean,
here, it looks a little.
this is the good side. If you go on the other side, it's,
Yeah, there's
it's
erosion just
literally
where the
cracking
concrete
apart
stuff.
and losing. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but just looking at it, you could tell someday it's gonna fall in, or if there was a big flood, it would wash it out. Now, that may not be an issue.
Can I just backtrack one quick sec to understand what is driving the whole, why we're considering doing something with the dam? Is it because of?
Oh,
Deemed unsafe.
Yeah,
It's been.
it doesn't meet the state regs. I mean, we are what's the word?
Borrowed time.
No, I'm just saying it's not compliant with.
Been kicking can down the road for what, 5 years?
Oh,
It's structurally at
Pre-COVID.
failure.
Well, not necessarily, but it's compromised. I mean, and the issue is, you could rebuild it to meet the state rules.
Yeah.
Or you could make it smaller so you don't have to meet the state rules.
Oh, but
So,
it
it's hardly a
still has to be
regulation.
safe.
But you want it to be safe. So,
And do we know what that means to make it safe? Like if we make it smaller?
well, there was an engineering study. I mean.
And that's the engineering
Yeah.
study that said it's, hundreds of thousands of
It
dollars.
was 330,000. That was pre-COVID dollars.
Yeah, but it was also kind of gold plated. I mean, it was, I mean, I was going to say stone plated, but they looked at a major rebuild, not only the bridge, but the whole structure. But, maybe that is what's needed.
Is our role on the Conservation Commission to advise the select board and then they make the final call?
Yeah, but it looks like we're going to have to fund probably at least half of it. So it's to our advantage not to spend
Yeah.
more
That
money.
was,
either.
that was part of it, just to give you the history, Steve.
Yeah.
There were folks who had a memory that went back to the establishment of the Goodwill Conservation Area, who remembered, say they remembered, that the Conservation Commission was going to take care of it, whatever that meant. And to them, that meant that we would do the whole cost of whatever was done. And you heard some nice numbers that Jack recited.
That's what we've been saving like a bunch of crazy squirrels.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they wanted us to, and said this out loud, not the select board in its entirety, but people came before the select board. And there may have been a member of the select board or two who said, yeah, you should pay for the whole thing. and deplete your treasury, so what? You should just do it. And frankly, we said no.
Good.
And we didn't have the money at that point either.
Well, we could have, given them all their money, but I was chair at the time, and I met with the town manager and with the then chair of the select board. And I said, we're not going to do the whole thing. Can we make a deal? And I thought it might be reasonable for us to contribute something. And we were at that point. They had us say yes, of making a significant contribution. But then other folks, including some folks on the select board and the planning board, the town manager, said maybe there's another way around, which would be to remove the dam altogether, which would also be expensive. But then there was talk of, well, maybe grant money would be available for doing that, and that would mitigate not the situation, but the cost.
Right. But it sounds like that's really not.
Well, that would have to be a whole nother,
And
you'd
Mark-
have to sit down with ARM and have a discussion with them. But
Yeah,
if
but
the
these are-
DES doesn't want you to do it,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's not a-
This trumps that.
Internal rules.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Selt and thank you is going to say no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's because I would.
And I think most of us would probably.
I wouldn't even want to ask,
Yeah.
to tell you the truth.
Right,
God.
right.
With that in mind, I had conversations with Debbie Gord for this, and I touched base with her to give her some updates.
That sells. She's.
But she's the stewardship, and I'm not sure, I mean, this, you can give this to her, but based on this,
Yeah. Forget it.
she doesn't have a decision to make one way or the other. Unless you all are gonna pursue removing and say, we don't care what you say, or they should.
Yeah, no.
No.
And you.
So for her, she sort of got out of having to deal with it.
This would close that door, in my view.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it sounds like
I communicated with Debbie in the last week saying I can come because she couldn't make it. And I will email her back with basically her conclusions. I'll copy you on that just to make sure I don't screw up in some way, but it's no decision to be made on Selt's part. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's.
I mean, you would have to still get their approval to lower the dam, but I don't imagine they would object to that.
One less. This is a side issue because it's not what we hired you to work on, but you said it. Talking about towns that take a second look at prime wetlands and redesignate.
Yeah.
And I think at a subsequent meeting, maybe this commission should think about the value we might have in redesignating prime wetlands.
You're talking about town-wide,
In general.
not just this.
Doing
Town,
the new prime wetland study.
townwide.
Well called.
And I think that
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
forward
I'm-
would be something to
I'm
think
interested in
seriously.
that, so. But as far as this one, it's highly unlikely we'd want to redesignate it.
And you don't need to, are you talking about adding prime wetlands?
Just taking a second
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
this.
You
this
don't
town is
need
not
to-
getting drier.
Since the state no longer has a 100-foot buffer, it's a smaller, there's less of a benefit from doing it. It protects the wetlands itself, it requires more mitigation for the wetlands. But like years ago in my town, Nottingham, so I hear about all this prime wetland, I was young. I was in the town a couple of years, got on the conservation commission. I did a whole prime wetland study. I then looked at the town tax maps, which were so inaccurate. The 1998 black and white aerial photos, which I did my map on, were 10 times more accurate than the town tax maps. So I couldn't send in the prime wetland on tax maps that were totally inaccurate. So I just called them critical wetlands. They have a 100-foot buffer, and to this day, they have a local 100-foot buffer.
Yeah.
So there's nothing stopping you from doing your own category,
That's interesting.
of wetlands for your own buffers,
Yeah.
rather than go through, because the biggest issue, because of politics and, not politics, but because of, uh, the whole issue of court cases related to prime wetlands, everything, they make you notify via certified, letter now. Now it's like $5 a pop. Not only people who are impacted by the prime wetland, but the abutters to the people who have land from wetland. And it ends up being like, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 of notification fees just to cover them legally for all the legal cases they have to deal with. My printer had some stripes on it, but you can download, you can save that digital file if you want.
Well, that was the first thing, if we're done with the presentation, I turn it off, but I didn't know if you want me to be saving files from your drive.
Well, if you want a if you want a digital version of it, okay, there's two files. One is the report and the other is the appendix. And you can also, I can give you this copy, but you can also, I could print out a cleaner copy at Staples or whatever. I'm not sure what's up
You
with
know
mine.
what the select board or whoever we're giving it to needs?
Oh, this should be sent to the select
Yeah,
board for
for
sure.
sure.
And Pat, who's taking notes, should have a copy in her records also.
Well, he's got it.
What?
How do you mean a copy?
You should have an electronic copy that you
Electronic
keep with the
copy, okay.
minutes.
Yeah.
I
And
think it's only like 12, it's not that many megabytes because there's not tons and tons of pictures. I also have an invoice. And the budget was 14.8. And I ended up at 12,468. Okay? Your conservation commission, I'm not gonna say, well, what the hell? Might as well charge them all the money. I'm charging you for what I did. And there's no sense in me charging more.
Well, I wonder about making additional copies perhaps. I don't know whether.
Well, you've got it in your budget to make as many
Right.
copies.
Do it in the town rather than Staples.
Yeah.
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 There's that.
Our treasurer's.
Oh, there's.
Not that he
Okay.
writes the checks, but
And
Are you able to send this to me electronically?
I can.
Later? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna scan it.
Fine.
Send it.
You're ahead of me because my scanner's not working.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't include the PowerPoint, but it didn't take me long to put that together. That was the last minute. So do you all have any other questions for me?
Pretty good.
One quick one, when you took the water depth, readings, you did that manually, you dropped a line out there to.
I had had my kayak paddle with,
Yeah, okay.
with all the different feet on it.
High tech.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
It could go up to
Yeah. I was on-
10 feet deep, but it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was easy enough to hit bottom and measure. I mean, it's close enough to understand the system.
Okay, so I downloaded.
Sound reports, do they have, coordinates so that we would know where they are?
No,
All right, so you got it all.
Yeah, so he'll send me a copy just because it'll be easier for me to get it to the town. And I'm gonna make a motion, that we pay West Environmental, $12,468.21.
second,
All in favor?
Okay,
Okay.
I will get those packages together and get them into, Amy.
so you downloaded everything or just the report?
The two PDFs.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't really need the presentation.
Thanks. So.
If you're gonna go about having I can spiff it up even.
Yeah, plus we really probably couldn't give the presentation as well as you do with the knowledge, so we'll stick with your full report probably.
Yeah.
And give it to the
I
town.
don't think the select board is gonna want a presentation, right?
the report should do it.
I'm just gonna go back in and make sure I
Does-
do.
Does the report include the visuals that are in that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a ton more. I got a
I
lot
can
of,
always use more
lot of photos, okay.
Okay,
What?
and I got 2 PDF files under called appendices and Richardson Dam, so I got them both.
Yeah,
All right, well, thanks a lot.
All right,
Really
thanks.
appreciate it. See you in. Board.
It's a good try.
I think we're probably not all surprised that.
Yeah.
No, we had to rule out the possibility.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Now we're facing the
think
full
this,
side.
this is the golden nail
Yeah.
in the golden coffin.
It's the golden cops.
Hey, Mark, just, you think there's anything else here that I want to stick around for? Or do you want any self-type input on anything that's it perhaps? Or-
Putting the agenda up here, but I don't think we've got it here.
I'm perfectly willing to leave.
Like I said, I did talk a bit with Dwayne the other night, but one thing I didn't ask him about was whether they were talking to Thibodeau, Young Road, the upstream of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't believe, to my knowledge, nothing's going on there, but
Yeah,
Dwayne doesn't confide in me with everything.
yeah. And it seemed like I have some vague memory of Thibodeau saying he was going to reach out himself. But
Is there anything from trail interconnectivity we should know about?
No,
Another
well,
aspect.
let's not-
You're on that too?
Yeah, but no, oh, yeah, yeah,
You probably haven't met over the holidays. Okay, I mean, I was looking at our agenda to see that,
yeah, right.
because I don't think there's anything else here that would keep John here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if he's in the same pattern he is all the time, he wants to go home and eat.
Yeah.
Exactly true. Although I did have avocado and some chips.
Okay, thank you for your patience.
Okay, you.
If the select board did want a button to be available to do that.
Sure. All right, we'll let you know. It doesn't seem like that.
Somebody's gonna pay for it if you do.
I mean, ultimately, my job is to provide the information that lets the regulators make decisions. And so their decision is the authority. And when they say, when you've got the Fish and Game who have the authority to comment on all wetlands permits, and you have the Wetlands Bureau saying, you got all these strikes against you, then, and it was not just an inspector, it was the assistant administrator.
Yeah.
I think we got the real information of what would really happen.
That's what I mean, when you present like informal conversations and sides like that, it becomes more impact, for me at least, it's more of a demonstration of what the essence of your report is.
Yeah.
Charlie, no?
No, he's gonna be in Maine.
Okay, stay warm.
You too.
We only have a few other items, so. shouldn't take long.
John?
So before we go
Yeah.
on,
Yeah,
some point should we, and it doesn't have to be tonight, but at some point we could, I think, tell the select board that we don't wish to pursue moving the dam altogether.
We should probably write a short summary of what we were presented and why. And then say, you know, if you want to, you can plow through the report, but, you know, this is what was presented to us.
we gleaned from it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, the commentary from the various state agencies that was obtained conducting this study.
And that could wait to the next meeting and you give them a
Well,
report.
I'd almost just assume now, I mean, just because we have other stuff. It's interesting, but
Is the next step though, is it to consider whether it's a dam repairable? Or
yeah,
is it?
the big question is the engine.
Replace.
If we need to
That's
redo the engineering.
that's the whole.
Yeah.
But I think we know what
That's
we're
where we're
looking
at
at.
this point.
So this might be back to the engineers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it is.
Were you happy with the engineers that you engaged?
no, I mean, you know,
I
did
think
what
we
they
did.
did, but I'm saying we weren't happy with the results.
We didn't engage the engineer, the select board engaged.
Oh,
But we paid for it. So
Yeah.
We did.
It's our report.
But it was like 330,000 to
Yeah.
basically replace the dam.
Right.
And it was somewhat gold plated.
So they had
That was-
two possible outcomes: remove it or replace it. Not the third option, which is lower it and maybe
Well,
buttress it.
No,
Yeah.
no,
It is a
the
lower.
option was to lower it.
Oh,
Yeah, but to do
That was
that, you
absolutely
gotta, you wanna build it right, you don't wanna.
yeah,
just-
yeah.
To be a little less
Off the
materials,
top
but you're
and
still
you-
gonna have most of the costs.
Yeah, and it would no longer be a dam and,
Yeah,
Designated
right, which would
dam.
get you out from under state.
but that's
I
what
think
the
you
engineer.
said the 330 was to lower it, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, was.
but it was to
Oh,
rebuild the
Okay.
bridge and, you know, it was.
To do a lot of
full out.
work, but it was no longer a dam once that
It
was.
was a state dam.
Yes.
Still gonna be a functional dam, just not a state dam.
But what I recall talking with Connor, and this is probably a few years ago now, was that he thought that we could do it cheaper, that it shouldn't be the 330.
Right,
It's inflation, but,
yeah,
you know, that there's probably a cheaper alternative. The big sticking point seems to be whether we gotta do the bridge to the fire department's
right.
qualifications or our own.
When they get across that bridge, is
There's a
that
road.
road that goes off to the left wide enough for them to drive?
Yeah. It would be their brush truck. It wouldn't be a regular fire truck, but
Mhm.
that's what they plan on. That's why they've got the brush trucks.
So does that mean the fire department kicks in like,
Well, that's, I mean, it should,
That
but,
comes out of the town budget.
yeah.
Yeah, we just gotta be careful. We play that card because we're still trying to play we want the town to pay for half of the dam. If we start, you know, and this extra part that Rick Walker wants, who we could outlast, because he's not real much
Well,
longer.
that
But,
Yeah, but somebody will be.
Yeah, somebody will be. You know, if we go and we put that in their face, we could get pushed back on them paying for half of it.
Mhm.
And we will be probably penalized because they have the right to ask, how much money have you saved it's almost 5 years, because it was pre-COVID. So it was fall of 19, I think we got those numbers. We'll have to go back and look.
by the way,
But it's been 5 years and we've been saving up our nickels and dimes.
what is the leverage that the state has to levy against the town, like eventually?
They keep
They
coming
could
back.
find the time.
When are you gonna fix it? Oh, fine.
Yeah. But as far as the money goes, and Steve, you might not know this, the town can't take our money. They can deny us permission to spend it,
Oh, I see.
but they can't take it. And there was a previous member of the select board who said, sure, we can play that game and we'll let you do anything.
Yeah, well, another
The
thing
money,
they could do.
we'll let just that money rot.
Well,
But
one thing
that
they
was then.
That was
You
then,
know,
this is
yeah,
now.
but no,
Every
who
town
knows?
decides what percentage of the land use change tax goes to the Conservation Commission. And we've got a pretty favorable percentage. I don't know what it is, but
It's 75%.
75.
75. I've talked to other towns and they only get 25 or 50% of the money. So, you know, the town they could have kept more of that money.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different potential money fights in here and you gotta pick which ones. And so
Right.
maybe if we can get them to say, we're gonna split the cost. And we split the total cost of a dam with a fire department approved bridge.
Right.
Might be the best play.
Sure.
No, we gotta probably chew on this a little bit more. But the first step, which he's got right, is eventually get a nice written paragraph. Summarizing what we heard, and this is our recommendation.
Right.
Here's the report if you want to bore yourself to death.
How expensive was it for the engineering assessment that provided the estimate for repair? Was that a big ticket item?
Yeah, it's 50.
About $10,000.
Well, I thought
a lot more.
I wasn't the treasurer then, so I don't know.
Yeah, I thought we designated 50,000. I was looking
I
at.
thought it was $60,000.
Yeah.
It's ringing a bell.
It was a big number.
Oh,
There
yeah,
were- Weren't there two different studies? There was a
that's
preliminary.
right. That's
and
right. I'm thinking of the first preliminary.
Spent,
I think that was right.
I don't know if that was the total cost, but that's what we, you know.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a firm that we didn't pick, so we could be,
Yeah,
we don't even know if the town still even uses that firm.
and it wasn't really competitive, like they weren't bidding against anyone.
Well, it wasn't at that point. It was-
Yeah, no,
So,
We didn't put it out for multiple
We
bids. Yeah.
actually looked at several engineering firms,
I seem to remember.
3. And we picked one and
Oh, we did.
maybe
Yeah.
we did spend.
Well, it's before my time.
Do you have treasurer history? stuff?
But some.
That's why I'm doing the
Sure
spreadsheets
must
now,
have
just
it
to.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere we have, I mean, they wrote a check.
Want,
Well, yeah, it might be, it'd have to be in minutes.
No, I just wanted,
It would be in minutes as far as what we might have read.
But I do have a copy of the report,
Uh-huh.
just in seeing result. There's lots of charts and graphs, diagrams.
Well, anyway, quite a lot of money. So,
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
a lot of money.
so Doug, just to go back what Ken said, are you gonna be writing a?
Yeah, I can,
Okay.
I'll write up a brief memo explaining, so. you'll-
Yeah, with all the stuff that get going on with, for warrants and getting ready to.
Yeah, I
we
mean, I
don't
won't
need
get
this
it
right
done in the next couple of days, but.
And we can at least, we can all look the state in the eye and say, yeah, we made some significant progress this month. We got our report, we've had discussions, we've eliminated options. So, I mean, we're, one thing the state said is just
Yeah,
keep
making
working
progress.
towards something,
Yeah,
make some
yeah,
progress. And so today we made a big step.
Good.
As far
How
as
long has
eliminating-
Mark been working on his report?
Since March, February.
However, it's at least a couple of years
Yeah.
before I had a telephone conversation with him.
Yeah, it took a while.
And it took a while to get it to the point of saying, okay, contract,
Yeah.
let's get this done. And then it got done.
But it's really just the latest step in this multi-year. When I first joined the Concom, we were discussing, going to take a look at the dam, just to get some sense of what's going on out there. So, anyway, I hope that's good enough for now. We'll obviously discuss it more in the future, visit it. I was thinking of postponing the zoning discussion, and partly just because it came up. I did go to the planning board meeting on Tuesday, which is actually where they, finalized them, or they held a public hearing of which 2 people attended, well, 3 actually. One guy stayed for half of it. But I thought I'd just give you kind of a FYI, this is what is kind of be coming up on the warrant. There were 11 different ones that the planning department came up with, but they narrowed them down to, I think, 8 or 9.
Here we are.
Do you have the list?
Well, I don't have that specific list, but there's zoning stuff.
Oh, well,
Seems to be all
yeah, I mean, I didn't want to get into it a lot now, partly because I thought, besides myself, Paul Hanish is kind of the one other, zoning obsessed person here that, was into getting into the weeds. So I thought maybe we could postpone it until next week. And besides, it's getting kind of late. And the deal is they did vote on it. I mean, it's a done deal as far as having input or anything. And most of them were 5-0. There were a couple that were kind of contentious. And then the other thing is that there's 4 petitioned zoning items. And I guess if you've been around a while, not surprisingly, they're all by Steve Jeffries. It's a long time nag, if you will.
Also, the first
planning.
person to put land into conservation
Oh,
in
yeah.
Barrington.
Yeah, he's got that posted on
He's
the
got-
building.
he's got
So,
quite a history.
But he
Yeah.
He delves into zoning in great
Yeah.
detail.
boy, he's felt in certain stages and projects he's done in his life that he's been screwed over.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he had some seemed to me pretty significant proposals, but he claims they're just kind of clarifying situations. But one of them is the 9.6. So, a lot of this does relate to what we're discussing because a lot of it has to do with either the 9.6, the special use permits, or conservation subdivisions.
Article 2 is conservation subdivision comprehensive changes.
Right. Right.
But so that's probably right, Tim.
Yeah.
Maybe what we should do is send a link out to this page to all the members.
Yeah.
But then, expect that we're probably gonna have a much better conversation with Paul.
Right.
But it plus if everybody has the time to read these, because I could click into them,
Yeah.
but we'll be here a long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like to see as much of that college football game live as I can.
All right. When's kickoff?
Let's see, it's about an hour ago.
This is Notre Dame, right?
Huh?
Looks like.
It was Notre Dame.
All right, well, let's move on then, but I just let you know that that's coming up and maybe look for getting, it's quite a packet of stuff and there's a lot of verbiage, of course, connected to them, but anyway. So kind of in place of that, I wanted to throw out that I have to write a annual report, if you recall, each town meeting, we have this report that's for the previous year. And so it's due like Tuesday, so I've got to bear down and get it done.
Yeah, Charlie's, I helped write one today from one of my other groups.
Yeah. But, and Gary's already submitted some language for the monitoring part of it. And I have some idea. I think it's going to be shorter this year because I don't think there's overall been all that many things to discuss. But I was just wondering if people had ideas or things that you recall from the past year. That,
Okay, well, all the trails activity Charlie writes up.
yeah,
So we leave that.
this isn't the trails.
Yeah,
They have their own report. So, but as far as our work,
The Barrington method.
yeah, but I'm not quite sure what to say. I basically say
should
we
say
continue to
something.
use it, or we've been
And
putting it into practice.
Yeah, and a sentence on what it is.
Right.
I mean, not instructions on how to use it,
No.
but
Right.
to say what it is and how we're using it.
Yeah. I mean, I did have a paragraph on that last year, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, it's not like it.
Didn't we
Because
conclude
it's
it? This-
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah,
but
Put it
what
in.
and this is another discussion that I wanted to have Paul here before, because, he's the one who's actually been implementing it so far. And there's some issues that have been raised, and actually that bears on the planning board items that are here, which aren't really big things to discuss either, but it's really the Barrington method that relates to that.
Question,
Yeah.
for this update, do you need an update on the total lands spreadsheet that we have?
For
This is
the
all-
monitoring you talk?
No, not monitoring. Yeah, basically, it's a list of all the lands in Barrington. Conservation of one sort or another.
No,
Every year,
I mean, we don't-
every year we update that.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a significant increase, like, we had the Landry project,
but
that was last year.
There's been no
Yeah.
cell increases this year.
Well, yeah, there were the cell properties. That's one that I was thinking.
This
I mean,
year?
it's not our baby, but yeah, there were several that did go in. I don't remember what month it was, but it was sometime last year. The one that's next to the Coop farm and
Okay, so there are some.
yeah, a couple of, that's the
Okay.
main one.
I'll get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking over our ledger that I put together. There's no events here that we paid that
Right.
worth noting
Yeah,
of anything.
it didn't seem like there.
We have to go back to 23 when we chipped in the money for the Landry.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No, that was kind of
Nothing from the treasurer.
last year. And I even had a photo to include if anybody happened to look at the report.
yeah, I don't know if you want to give them the final number of what we got in our coffers, because that could hurt our case.
No, I don't think.
I was trying to get my inputs in the same way.
Right.
Very the trade.
Anybody think of anything? What about we've worked with the town administrator to develop a position
Right, yeah.
to support
Yeah.
land use office and conservation commission.
And of course, that's assuming the budget goes forward. but-
Well, yeah, we did some of the work regardless.
Well,
If they,
we put a good.
if they
case
shoot it
forward.
down, well, it's still we'll get some more.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the most significant thing, I think. Assuming it goes forward.
Let's see. Money, trials.
So you
We
would
did
be
a lot
able to
more.
call it the total, land of conservation at the beginning of 2024.
Yeah, we keep
Yeah,
track
we have a
of it.
spreadsheet.
Keep track of it. We have every year we have, when there's new lands that are acquired by yourself or the town acquired lands this year too. I think it was on the town lands that they authorized to purchase.
Which one?
Cables.
Oh, the
Yeah.
town common.
The new town commons, didn't they close in there?
Yeah, except that
Okay.
it doesn't really, right now, it's not conservation.
It's
land.
not conservation land.
The only thing you could put down is, we do have representatives and we're participating in the interconnectivity.
Yeah, I was kind of mentioning that. That's true.
because I mean, I'm just looking at the people that are here, or I'm also trying to think of the people that are not here, but I mean, you've, you know, the record keeping and getting the easements monitored is at an all-time high.
Mhm.
And John was gone.
Every report is filed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With
And
new,
and they've covered,
with new reports, actually.
Yeah.
Armed, actually.
Yeah.
Which was it, and they're all putting new websites up, where you just can't send a report, you have to. Their website, go to the portal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you need for that, you need a password.
Yeah.
Nobody's in the office to do that for you.
Yeah, the whole-
All right, well, I think that gives me plenty to work with.
Yeah, the only other thing that might be of interest to the town, but I'm assuming the trails committee will cover it, is we did start looking at this open area around here.
Yeah.
But I think that will still be Charlie's province.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd leave that.
I only said for us because, you know, that was one of the big selling points of how this property was acquired.
Yeah.
So,
And could you have something else?
Well, I was just gonna ask if it's appropriate for you to share that report with the members here.
Yeah, even before it gets.
No,
published,
not
or-
before, not for comment or review, just for,
Well, when you go to vote, right, you do vote, you can get a copy. It's all,
we're talking about the West report?
this is the,
the report,
oh,
about
I'm
right,
sorry.
Oh,
The one,
the one that you're gonna provide to.
yeah, it goes into the town report. the
Oh,
big
okay.
and it's due on the 14th.
Yeah. And they're available online too, but you can get a hard copy. Kind of brings me to my next topic related to that was that it's nice to have pictures. And I have some, I've used some of my best ones, and I haven't shot any new ones. And I'm wondering if folks have any in your inventory. It doesn't need to be from the last year, but
I got a bunch.
we'd like to, cover a number
I got
of
a bunch of
different,
UTAC and stuff.
they should all be conservation areas, public lands, But,
I got a bunch of views, but,
well, yeah.
emblems
Not
of
so
them.
not so much action shots, but I'm thinking more just landscapes,
Yeah,
beaver ponds,
I'll say something.
Yeah.
color. Anyway,
Mostly what I have in my photos.
I need to have them by Monday though, so it's kind of short notice, but
Short.
yeah, but whatever you can pull up. I mean, I have a few in mind that I can use, but you only get so many, but that would really help. And because mine are somewhat limited in scope. Okay, so I think that's it for the report. As far as the cases before the planning board, you can see the one that, second one they listed actually is continued to February 4th. And that is one that involves a 9.6. And I again want to have Paul have input on that. And we don't need to do it yet because after our next meeting. And the one with Garland on Corbett Road, if you recall, we looked at it a couple months ago. But at that point, they didn't have the plan for building the driveway. This is a single home that they're planning to build up on a hill. They have to go through a wetland to get there. And so we didn't think it was actually a good candidate for using the Barrington method because you're just crossing a wetland. It's not like they can avoid the buffer. You got to go through the buffer to cross the wetland. But anyway, and it was approved by the planning board Tuesday night. That's kind of a done deal. And then the third one on this list here, Bearish, is another one of those condo units off of 125. Can't remember the road. It's right before you go into Rochester. It's like 20 units. And anyway, they're basically
Tiny left circle,
what?
tiny left
Yeah.
circle.
So, and it's just kind of not really retail, but a guy who wants to show off these tricycle, motorcycles, those three-wheel. And it's not like a retail operation where it's going to be a showroom, but he wants to be able to show them off.
By appointment, low
Yeah,
crowds.
and it doesn't seem to have any environmental aspect.
Yeah, 'cause he did make specific mention that he's not gonna be servicing them there, so, because he would, if he ever thought, oh shit, he's gonna be dumping oil, because he is close to retention ponds, but he's not, he's got
Yeah.
shops to do the work. He's just gonna bring customers in to show off the custom.
They're not,
Thanks.
they're not gonna fire them off and go riding on my property next door, are they?
I assume,
I own that property.
I don't know.
yeah, they skip the roads.
Yeah, they would.
The
just
last
go
thing you
out-
do is
they
take
go
a
out
truck and drive it off road.
drives, but just out front drive.
I just sent you the appendices and the report that Mark gave us
Oh.
to I sent it to your email.
Oh, okay, yeah, good.
I'm just remember
Yeah.
that picture that shows where the turtles are. He said we've got to be kind of careful of that.
But, oh, you mean to not make it public?
Yeah, so
Right.
if we are going to send it to the town, we probably should add something that
Yeah, it's not to be,
you'll have to go in and pick out the page or find a way to black it out or something.
yeah,
See, let's put a note in there saying, trust us, there's landing turtles all over the place.
yeah.
But we can't let you guys put it up at a town select board meeting.
Right.
There'll be somebody who'll be bitching about, oh shit, we can't do it because of a stupid turtle.
Where did that request come from? Did it not be shared with the public? Was that a
Mark
state?
said.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
he
it's
was-
the
states.
statewide kind of thing.
Oh.
They don't want to advertise where the endangered species. There's people that like want to eat them or, just sick people, but they're out there. So the idea is
We need to go meet with some of your
Don't let them know.
neighbors. You're going to basically find,
it's on a need to know basis.
Okay.
But I assume if we put a note to the select board, I mean, they can look at it, but they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Publicizing it or putting it up on the screen. Yeah. A note of that note.
So we'll sanction.
Yeah.
Assess fines.
yeah, like use the word state, just so it's not this isn't a personal request from Mark.
Right, yeah. Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah, so anyway, that's all the planning board stuff at this
So you
point.
would say no comment
No,
on the
yeah.
Barrington?
Yeah, well, and again, that one was also voted on. It's because of the holidays and we didn't meet and actually, we didn't even have them if we were meeting in
So it was
December,
approved
so.
by the plan.
Yeah, but again, it wasn't one that I thought we'd have any comment on. And the others, it's kind of like, other than denying the guy the opportunity to build a house, it's kind of tough to say much about it. But the one on Mary Hill Road, actually, that's one John Wallace asked about. That one, again, is not acted on yet, so we might still have some comment, but I think we'll save it till next meeting. That's all right. So we just have a bit of old business. The Dudzik parcel, if you recall, that's the land that's adjacent to the Barrington Swains
Village.
Village
Water district.
Water District. Water supply protection area for the well that they have. Got all the story, but when they had the Superfund site identified on Tibbetts
Yeah,
Road,
okay,
right?
yeah.
They ended up creating this water system for about 100 houses in that vicinity, Tibbetts Road, Hall Road, other roads. So anyway, this opportunity came up to protect 30 some acres of adjacent land. And then SELT got involved and, we all thought it was a good idea. So we chipped in, I think, 25,000. Is that the number?
I think we
I mean,
put 100 in.
it wasn't that much, I know.
That was any more than 25, isn't it?
And maybe we should look at it, but,
I'll go back and complain.
anyway, the deal is coming to fruition. And in fact, the planning board also on Tuesday night approved, they needed to change the lot line because the original lot was kind of this funny T-shape.
We gave 100.
Was
Every
it?
project donation, whenever.
No, not Landry. This is,
Dudzik.
I thought it was 60 or so.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's all pending.
We were
it's
stingy
still
at
pending.
first because we didn't have.
Yeah, we haven't given.
Oh, yeah, no, we didn't give them all they wanted, but they did get all they wanted. And anyway, my
Yeah,
point
they-
is, it's coming
We,
due,
we asked them to look somewhere else and then
And
come
they
back
did.
to us if they were really
Yeah.
stuck.
and they did.
And they did
Yeah.
that and it
What
worked
do
out.
you have it?
We haven't given it the money yet.
No.
I have to mind my emails to see if Dwayne gave us.
Well, we should find out what that is. Anyway, the lot change was made, and that's to create a smaller lot that's the residential lot that isn't in conservation area. What was interesting is that the planning board meeting, because, the abutters got notified, the abutters showed up, and there were like 3 or 4 folks, two or 3 different families that showed up saying, what's going on? We don't know what this is about. And eventually they got to explain to them that it's all about your water and, you know, protecting the water supply. It's not gonna be developed. The whole point is that if you redesignate this, it will be landlocked. It won't be able to be developed. The other issue came up about access. They kind of wondered about this, access easement, or not even an easement, but a area that
A
was
little alley
designated.
was gonna be created
Right.
so that you could walk in, but you couldn't drive it.
Right. That was by our request.
Yeah,
And, you know, Dwayne reminded me of that. So that we were the ones that pushed for that. Dudzik was good about it as well. But anyway, one of the neighbors said, wait a minute, that goes right by my house. Well, you put your house too damn close to it. I mean, I didn't say that, but it's kind of not our fault, you know, it's still on the Dudzik property. But anyway, the main point, it's not going to be full public access. There won't be any trailhead. There won't be any signs. There won't be any parking. And it's really just for the neighborhood. I mean, that's kind of our sense was that the neighbors should be
so it's gonna
able
be
to
a
access.
secret entrance?
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
Not well noted.
well,
I don't have the number for you. All I got is October 9th of last year. We have not yet closed on Dudzik on Street and haven't made the requested
Well, it's
funds
still
yet, but the
closed.
project is progressing.
Right.
We have some title issues that required some research and work, and we are hopefully getting to a point where they're getting close to being resolved. But he didn't give me a number. He only gave me the detailed numbers on the Landry money, which we already know. So we have to wait for the bill to come in. The only other thing would be is we'd have to go back to,
Well, we should.
Our minutes,
That far.
but I don't,
Yeah. Or would you be able to
I'm
research
looking
that?
now.
I don't need it right now, but anyway, the point is it's gonna close in March, like March 21st, I believe, that equinox.
Yeah.
And so we need to come up with the money like a week before. So there'll be.
Paul, I have it. Paul made a motion to fund 65,000 for the purchase. So it's,
All right, so it's here.
What date was that?
I just closed it.
Oh,
Let me see if I can
I'm
find.
sorry.
Well, it
I
was
found
more than a
something,
year
but
ago.
just a comment.
About a year ago.
Let me see if I
About a
can
year
pull it up again. Which one was it? It was,
January 2024, there's a comment about it.
Yeah.
It's about
So anyway, I'm pretty sure they're counting on that, but not any more than that. So we need to make a note in your, what is it, your
65K.
spread.
okay.
Yeah. So that's the update on Dudzik.
well, the only, the outstanding, we'll say obligations we've got around are Dudzik and the dam.
Right.
That I know of, other than the money we just approved to pay.
Well, plus the new hire.
Yeah, the new hire project,
Yeah, that's, yeah.
which, did we, forget what the title, what was the total number we came up with? Was it like 180 or something?
Yeah, somewhere around 200,
200.
over several years.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm gonna put, for now, I'm gonna put the old number in for the dam.
One other thing on Dudzik, this access, well, one of the questions I guess isn't quite resolved is the monitoring. And I was thinking, well, it'll be good for monitoring that you won't be able to not have to walk through their backyard.
okay.
But it seems like SELT is kind of managing it, but they said that it was going to be a state arrangement. It's through the drinking water fund, as you might imagine. But I don't think the state does their own monitoring. Seems like we end up doing the monitoring.
I haven't seen
for
anything
those.
from the state, from my perspective.
Well, we've submitted reports, I believe, to the state or, you know, well, we
None of
didn't
my
do the
other-
goodwill.
none of my other reports were the state.
Yeah, maybe we didn't. Maybe none of those grants did.
The
Anyway, you know,
County,
it's not clear, not to me anyway, exactly how it's going to be monitored, but I presume it needs to be monitored. He said it wouldn't be a formal easement either. It would be a deed restriction.
how many acres is it?
30 some, maybe 40. It's pretty significant. I can send you a copy of it or something.
Yeah,
You can see what it looks like. Yeah.
So just so you know, we got almost $600,000 kind of promised. I used to add it up the three projects, the Dudzik, the dam, and the shared asset.
If they all, yeah.
If we, but I mean, remember the shared asset is something over 5
And
years.
that was including
and
the staff.
I just put in the 200,000 number.
Yeah.
Some thought.
Yeah.
So that's spread out over 5 years, and the dam's gonna be spread out too. It's not all gonna probably
Yeah, of
happen at
course.
once.
Yeah, so it's still within our budget, if you will.
Theoretically, we would
We're
not
not gonna
want
be
to
in the
try
red.
right now, but let's not tell anybody else that.
Right.
Hey, just real quick, that Superfund site, is there, do we know anything about remediation there, or is that just
And I'm
encapsulated?
sorry, the dam?
No, sorry, at the,
Tibbetts, the
Superfund.
Superfund.
Oh.
Contaminated, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much done. I mean, I think they've
It's just
gone through
gonna-
it.
It's not gonna be
Yeah,
excavated.
they did a major remediation.
Oh,
but it
they
was
did? Oh.
in situ. I mean,
Yeah, but it's not into
it's
the
kind of
ground.
interesting. They actually planted a whole bunch of poplar trees and they draw out the toxic stuff. And then I think they removed some of the trees, some of the vegetation. But that's actually, Connor brought it up the other day that that land might be available for a solar farm or something. I mean, not necessarily for housing, but
Yeah,
but you know, for some use.
But it's not
a brownfield.
fully contained either, because the road at the end of Tibbetts, was it Cedar Creek or?
Cedar Creek.
Yeah.
But that, when they put houses in there, they originally all dug wells, and they end up sucking the contaminants over, and they had to be added to the system.
Yeah.
So you can't say that.
Yeah, it's not-
Never heard that part of the story.
What?
Yeah, I've never.
Yeah, they explained it to
I'm
us.
surprised that that
Or
would
you
have been
can't-
kind of obvious. That, you know, it's because it's relatively close, probably closer.
Well, plus what, there's about, I think it's a little over a dozen homes down there, they all.
You know, they're kind of downhill or down gradient.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So anyways, a lot of history there. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Trail interconnectivity, again, we haven't met recently, but I think the last meeting I showed you the latest map, I think. But anyway, that's coming along. Oh, there was going to be a meeting with people at the UNH,
Cooperative extension.
well, cooperative extension, but they have a program where they do trails and community. It's kind of how to develop your town and trails. It's the program. Anyway, they got it's not a grant per se, but they got their time basically to help the town. And this is mainly for the town center, figuring out, you know, access to, you know, various facilities and such. So that's going forward. And they were going to meet back in December, but somebody got sick or something didn't work out, so they didn't do it. But they were going to do a field walk. And I'm kind of interested in, you know, pointing out how we can connect, like the library, for example. There's a trail 90% of the way to it. Most people aren't even aware of, you know, it's the right of way railroad. So anyway, that's it for interconnectivity monitoring.
I've got 2025 all mapped out, all of the updates. Doesn't start till March, April.
Wait for the weather.
Yeah,
Clear
it's
out.
too visible out there from here.
Now the
So inside.
turbo cam got postponed.
Got postponed, but connected with the guy, and we're gonna try to. Big Paul and I were trying to get the guy. And Poncho's falling down.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Campbell on some like just for PR. Kind of. So the first site,
March, probably. Okay.
there's certainly coming along in that building.
Yeah.
I see those guys out there that they was really one of those guys up there. And that's steel grids that
Yeah, it's funny how, you know, in the town, like Facebook, there were Barrington connections, you get people saying, what the hell are they building out here? You've heard of turbo cam, right? I mean, it's just more turbo cam. Anyway, yeah, okay, so that's it for old business. Trails committee, I guess we have the hike coming up.
Yeah, well, the forest bathing hike we did with the Parks and Recreation, I think went well. They maxed out. They're now polling people as far as their feedback and how much they'd be willing to pay, because they told us up front that they were going to do this program to, you know, to forever teach more and more people. But it was interesting. People seem to enjoy it. And we're going out tomorrow night with close to 30 people, you know, walk in the moonlight. How the, maybe, you know, chase down some werewolves.
good views of Venus and
Yeah, there's some big conjunction.
Well, you know, it's a little spread out right now, but it's Saturn, Venus, and Mars.
Yeah,
Just
all up in the
they're all there.
Yeah,
We're about half moon though, isn't it?
I hope somebody's up on astronomy in this bunch. I mean, I'm sure out of 30 people, somebody will know how to.
Is it on the horizon or is it up high?
That's high, it's up high enough.
Yeah.
You'll see it right
Maybe
now.
I'll try to Google it, see what
Yeah,
it's worth looking
You got a
at.
star chart on your phone?
I'll do that.
I'm sure somebody will come up with that.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Just like you flyboys, it was better things than celestial navigation. We all took it because we had to, but God help us, we never used it.
Yeah. Oh, I did.
I didn't use it either, but.
I did have a trails inquiry on the, our email, mission. They were asking about, they said there was a new sign saying you cannot have, or dogs must be leashed. This was at Satwasser Trailhead. And I went back and looked at the town regulations, that the dogs should not be running free anywhere. But it isn't exactly the same as saying they all have to be leashed. Do you know anything about he thought it was a new sign that wasn't there previously?
It could be somebody who's pissed and put a sign up, it happens to us.
But do we know, are there rules that, or do we encourage or insist that people keep their dogs on leashes?
I think the official rule is they're supposed to be leashed, but people that have their dogs under control, take them off the leash.
Right. So I was thinking of just getting back and saying, well, if your dog is under control, I wouldn't worry about it, but they say, and even so.
Well, part of the problem is, people go, well, my dog's under control, and you go, well, what if another dog comes? Well, then they go crazy. Well, then your dog is not under control.
Right.
The definition of under control is that a dog shouldn't go batshit crazy just because another dog or a bunny rabbit shows up.
Right.
That's a high bar for a dog.
Yeah.
That's a high.
I walk with a leash still because I went out once in the winter and my dog looked up and saw this big, tall, skinny brown dog with antlers and went, yeah, I'm gonna play with him.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll cite the cell recommendations, which are basically bring a leash and if they're keep them in control, whatever. But I wasn't clear on that myself, not having dogs, but there are a lot of them out there. So, anything else from their committees, rivers, nothing, sightings? What do you see anything interesting?
Too cold.
Yeah, I know. It's
When you're outside anymore.
all the critters are all huddled away. Yeah.
I saw more deer at my brother's house in Massachusetts Thanksgiving than I've seen around here.
Yeah, well, that's not surprising. We have had a lot of bluebirds showing up. We actually had a lot today. Yeah, I got 6 of them.
Yeah,
You get them right
it's about six,
Yeah.
about 6 on fly. The worms, so.
Right, yeah. So we just love to sue it. Both, but,
I wonder if it got to a place to really.
yeah, no, that's really the way we get them. Yeah. But I'm hopeful they'll stick around more. Because you guys aren't feeding them these days, so I think we're getting all your birds.
Yeah, no, the bear issue is not
Yeah.
manageable for us.
It's a nuisance.
I think it's too cold for them. We have a lot of
Yeah.
land there, so they kind of shy away from us.
Yeah. All right, well, that's all I have. Motion to adjourn.
Seconded,
All right.
There'd be no objection.
2104.